Hello and welcome to our channel, where we explore the fascinating history and culture of ancient civilizations. Today we are going to talk about the priests of ancient Mesopotamia, the land between the rivers Tigris and Euphrates, where some of the earliest and most influential civilizations emerged. To the Mesopotamians, priests and priestesses were as significant and powerful as kings. They were mediators between the gods and the people. Mesopotamian priests and priestesses had many duties and responsibilities, and in exchange they received respect, honor and creature comforts. The priests had a lot of knowledge and skills that made them valuable members of society. They could read and write cuneiform, the world's first writing system, which they used to record myths, laws, contracts, literature, and astronomy. They could predict the movements of the stars and planets, which they used for astrology and divination. They could heal diseases and injuries with herbs and spells. They could manipulate water and fire with magic. They could advise kings and rulers on important matters of state. There were many types of priests in ancient Mesopotamia, each with their own specialization and function. The En or Entu were the high priests of a city or a temple. They performed the most sacred rites and rituals, worked closely with the king, and wrote sacred books on gods and goddesses. The Lugal were the king priests of a city-state or an empire. They were considered to be representatives or even incarnations of a god on earth. They had absolute power over both secular and sacred matters. The Baru were the diviners or seers of a temple. They used various methods to foretell the future and reveal hidden things. Some of these methods included observing animal entrails, casting lots, interpreting dreams, reading palms, and consulting oracles. The Sangha were the administrators or managers of a temple. They were in charge of the temple's finances, personnel, property, and offerings. They also supervised the other priests and workers in the temple. The Ashipu were the exorcists or sorcerers of a temple. They performed rituals and spells to ward off evil spirits, demons, curses, and diseases. They also used magic to influence people's fate and fortune. The Asu were the physicians or healers of a temple. They used natural remedies and incantations to treat physical and mental ailments. They also performed surgery, dentistry, and veterinary medicine. The Gala were the lamenters or mourners of a temple. They performed dirges and elegies to express sorrow and grief for the dead or for the misfortunes of the living. They also participated in funerary rites and ceremonies. Purification priests made sure cult statues, sacred objects, and different temple areas remained holy. They also provided offerings in the form of food, drink, clothing, and other items, so that the patron gods were content. The Shengu were the singers or musicians of a temple. They performed hymns and prayers to praise and appease the gods. Finally, the last faction of priests created images and statues that decorated the temple. But how were the Mesopotamian priests chosen? The first criterion to be chosen as a priest in Mesopotamia was to be perfect in the physical body with no blemishes or deformities. Secondly, the future priests had to be born into an upper-class family. Thirdly, young boys who were singled out for priest training had to perform well in scribe school. They would go through years of education, and then complete a lengthy apprenticeship before finally becoming a priest. To qualify as a priest, a man had to go through an elaborate purification rite. During the rite, they were shaved, their nails were clipped, and they were washed with soap and water in the bathhouse. While that happened, the exorcist recited 16 prayers over them, chasing away the evil. Then they anointed themselves with oil in which they have mixed grass. They had to wear clean garments, and a pure white wool turban that marked them as servants of the gods. They could eat nothing, but had to chew cedar to purify their breath. A priest who committed a crime could not come into the presence of the god. In some cases, women joined the priesthood as well, but had fewer rights than priests. For example, priests could have children, but priestesses could not. They were allowed to marry and serve as a stepmother to any children her husband had. The priests of ancient Mesopotamia were an essential part of their society and culture. They shaped the history and destiny of their civilization with their wisdom and skill. Thank you for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, Please like, share, subscribe, and comment below. See you next time.